All right, everyone. Well, welcome to Wake Up to Your Life Magic, a podcast that is dedicated to elevating the conversation that we're having in leadership by having conversations we don't always have. And I will remind you, you can check out everything about the book at wakeuptoyourlifemagic.com and learn more. Enjoy the process of becoming a more elevated, more integrated society as we talk about all the things that make for great leadership. And today I have with me Christine Perkett, who is really going to have a lovely chat with me because she's a lovely human being, and hopefully her dogs aren't too loud because we've got some pest control in the house. So if you hear some barking, you'll know what is up. Hey, Christine, how are you today?
Hi, I'm good. Thank you for your flexibility with real life working from home.
Oh my gosh, right? Well, that's the life of an entrepreneur. Christine, tell the audience a little bit about what you do and who you serve.
Sure. Well, my day job is as CEO and co-founder of the Nova Method. So we're a AI-driven, audience-first marketing communications and PR firm. And in that role, I lead the company, but also mostly focus on helping brand and company leaders build trust-centered narratives. So they go beyond surface level engagement to actual resonance rather, and drive engagement with employees, customers, investors, media partners, etc. So really to drive action through resonance. And we guide organizations to communicate authentically in a world that sometimes seems like it's becoming more inauthentic every day.
You know, I love that word resonance. Can you describe a little bit what that means for people who want to understand how that works in branding? By the way, I love what you and your company do. So yeah, describe that a little bit for people.
Thank you. And thanks for having me here. I got distracted with the pest control conversations.
Yeah, no worries.
So resonance really it ties back to our audience first ethos, which is demographics are not enough. You really need to dig into the psychographics of who you're trying to reach, whether it's internal or external audiences. And in order to connect with someone, you really need to get to know them. So many brands go out me first, and they're talking about their products or their offerings or their services or their events or whatever it may be. And they're trying to get you as the audience to really engage with what they do versus the other way around. And so we build resonant campaigns that make the audience feel that you care before you pitch.
Which makes sense. So that people want to feel seen and heard and known and understood and loved and valued. And
Right,
I guess
exactly.
that's how you do that. Beautiful. So tell us, I love this question because I want to get to know something about you. I want our audience to get to know something about you through a story, through something you experienced that maybe changed your life or moved or shifted you. So what's something that we can learn from you and your story?
What's something you can learn from me and my story? Gosh, there are so many I have to choose.
Right.
I do writing and training also, and I really focus on helping individual leaders cultivate not just a trust-driven leadership, but also resilience. And I write a resilient leadership newsletter on LinkedIn. And the reason that I do that is because as we all have challenges, my life has been full of them. And I think that I'm resilient because when I was growing up, my parents moved to 3 different states. So I grew up in Illinois, Wyoming, and Michigan, not in one place. And before we got on the call, we were talking about teenagers. Teenagers can be a little hard on you if you're a stranger. So although I had wonderful experiences, I also had a lot of really difficult ones that taught me how to pivot and make the most of any situation. And I think that's really how I became an entrepreneur, because you have to really be an independent thinker. And when you're a teenager going into a new school in the middle of your sophomore year, you have to be independent, walk through doors that are scary, and really be resilient and adapt. So I would say out of everything that I've experienced, those experiences of moving probably really shaped a lot of who I am today.
Yeah. And so it was being dropped in a new environment and then dropped in a new environment and then dropped in a new environment, right?
Correct. Yes. And having to pivot, right? Or having to be empowered and really own your agency and stand in that truth. So that's a lot of what I write about today. I also write more of my personal story on Substack. The LinkedIn is more like being, a resilient leader. And my Substack is more about being a human that has both challenges at work and at home behind the scenes. And I think we've seen over the last 10 years, maybe a lot more leaders talking about the importance of resilience and opening up about their own experiences behind work. What sort of things they were facing in terms of personal challenges while also trying to lead a company. And I think the more we can talk about that openly and honestly, the better leaders and the better work environments we'll have. You don't have to be vulnerable about everything. You don't have to share everything about your life, but just saying, hey, I too have had challenges, or I bet you didn't even know I was a duck on water during that year where, I was really trying to look in control on the surface, but paddling like, underneath. So.
Yeah, it's actually so two things. You said we don't reveal everything. I remember when I was doing my podcast and I was going through everything. Like it's like church trauma, divorce trauma. What's your view on fetishes? What's your view on porn? Like I was like, what? Like this podcast is making me talk about everything. But my point of all that is that it's so challenging because we're often in it. That's when we need the support. But we have this shame factor.
Yes.
Like somehow I can't reveal that I've got, whether it's the pest control man at my house,
yes.
right? Or whether it's just like, hey, right now I'm financially really strapped. I'm really trying to figure out how to get this done. Or, my son is being a big problem at home and it's really hard. So I need to leave earlier. It's having the humanity to get to be with each other.
And I think that's a really great point. When you're a leader that expresses that humanity as well, you allow your people, your workforce, your partners to do better at work because they can be better at home. And I think that's really important. If when I first started my career longer ago than I want to admit, it was the kitchen's full of everything so that you wouldn't go home ever kind of environment. And you need to have both, and there's never a fine consistent balance, but you can always strive for some sort of balance, right? And sometimes work demands more than home, and sometimes home demands more than work, and we need to give people the freedom to address those as they need to without feeling that shame, right?
Agreed. And realize that part of the way to profit is going to be treating the people as real humans.
Right.
Because then you're going to get what you can't pay for is the loyalty, is the extra working hours, is the passion, the purpose. And companies that don't invoke the humanity in their people, they're not going to get that kind of dedicated work and effort.
Right.
So let's talk about your vision that you're creating through your company, through the work that you're doing around branding and also resiliency, resonance. What is your goal as you're doing this work? What's your vision for how the world will be better 5 years from now, 10 years from now, because of the kind of work that you're doing?
Well, first and foremost, I think, we would be remiss not to mention AI is changing everything right now, but it's kind of like everyone's just throwing it up in the air and not sure where it's going to land. I think what we're working on now is helping, as the Nova Method, helping brands to really keep that humanity in their branding. And I've always thought that was important. Whether you're a B2B company or a B2C company, at the end of the day, humans buy, right? They're the decision makers. You might get advice from AI, but you're still going to make the choice. So you really, want to keep that humanity as technology evolves. And we've been through it before. We were through it with social media. Everyone was on social media networks and feeling like they had to talk about certain things or do certain things before they were really ready. So embracing technology thoughtfully and keeping the humanity as part of it. And I will say that this week, OpenAI caused a hoopla by posting a job posting for a content marketer. And everyone's like, see, even the AI company knows that they need humans involved. So I thought that was kind of fun and cool. And also it's almost $400,000 a year. So whoever gets that job is going to be definitely leading the way and showing us how to do that. But overall, in the next 5 years, I envision for me a life that blends impact and growth and balance professionally with the Nova Method. Like I said, thriving as a trusted partner to my business partner, Michelle, as well as the best and brightest brands in technology, healthcare, where a lot of AI is making a big difference, finance, nonprofits. I think there's just so much tremendous opportunity. So helping to create a world that envelops that responsibly and productively. And then, well, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, what's so interesting is it just a little light went off in my head that, it's going to be important to have companies like you sort of consulting companies like, listen, you're no longer resonating.
Right.
You're no longer resonating with people. You've adopted so many tools that they know AI. They're like, I never talk to anyone anymore.
Yeah.
So why should I go with you when I can go with them? They still have people. They still have connection. It's going to be a really interesting balance that we're going to be playing in the market.
It is. And I think brands need to be really thoughtful about it. In fact, yesterday, I believe I posted on my LinkedIn just about the finance world, but I was quoting a research paper, and it said that I think 97% of Gen Z wants to talk to an actual human versus an AI. So we've kind of come full circle, right? For a long time, we were like, I don't want to sit on the phone with, whoever from this brand that I need a service from. I'd rather just do the chat bot. And now people want to talk to people again. So our branding and marketing needs to really emphasize that. And, building trust in a world that's kind of upside down is going to take some work. You can't just set it and forget it. So yeah. And then I'm also, the name of my newsletter is I'll Take It From Here, and I'm writing a book of the same name. And
yes, book.
Pardon me?
Yes, book. What's the name of the book?
Exactly. So I'm really hoping to just inspire people to rise through adversity and stand in their power, like I said earlier, and love their lives. And also hopefully launch podcasts like you around that whole ethos. And everybody faces challenges. It's all about how we get up. That's one of the oldest sayings in the book, right? So in the book. So, it's all about how you
the one you're writing, right?
Yes, all about how you get back up.
Do you know the title already?
Yes, it's I'll Take It From Here.
Okay, I'll take it from here.
It's about moving through the hard times and standing up and finally recognizing that you are in control. You can do this, you can get through this, and you can direct the life that you want, direct your life the way that you want.
Yeah, so much of the ethos about this, it's many of us are going to be facing and are facing and will continue to face into this great question, right? Which kind of leads me to the next area. This element of going within, finding the capability, finding the power, finding source, finding strength. I in my book, I talk about a creator being model of education. So we as humans are taught in a Prussian model of education. There's a teacher, there's the students, they're lined up, and we learn to go to the authority for approval. So we wind up becoming approving seeking, right? In so many areas, we're following the recipe, we're doing what we're told. We become incredible military, factory, and corporate employees, right? That sort of do their part in the wheel. And that's not bad. We need that to run a society. But the other flip side of that is the creator being model, in which you are enough. From you comes everything, comes the ability to sell, comes the ability to support, comes the ability to create, all of it, which is what you do, Christine, as an entrepreneur. So it's balancing these two elements, right? Both being a creator and being a widget in the machine, so to speak. And what sounds like your book speaks to that. So my question for you, Christine, as I kind of parlay into this element, when you think about who you are and why you're here and what this experience means to me, we get into things that are like mystical or spiritual or, the really superhuman things that this thing's never going to think about. Why am I here? Except they'll go, maybe they'll tell us about how they were created, right? But we get to ask these esoteric questions as to why we're here and where are we going, right? This is like a great human, beautiful question. And I'm curious about, first of all, like how you explain that. And then how does that translate to leadership in business for you?
That's such a deep question. I would say I'm going to spend my life trying to figure that out. And who knows if you get the answer while you're here. But if I had to give you an answer, I really feel passionately in my heart, my soul, that I am here to help people who think they're not worthy stand up in their power and create the life they want. And I have been that corporate, what's a good word? I don't want to say drone, but sort of corporate drone. I tried that for a little while. I'm not very good at following all the rules, which would explain my entrepreneurial career. I founded 4 companies. This is the 4th. And I did that with no permission whatsoever. But in fact, I spoke at Inbound one year and I spoke about resilience. And I shared a story that in both high school and college, I had guidance counselors or counselors say to me, "You're going to do what now?" I lived in Michigan. I graduated from school in Michigan. And my advisor said, "You're not going to be able to go to Boston and do this. You're going to be a small fish in a big pond. You should stay in Michigan if being an entrepreneur is what you want to do." And so I'm one of those people that's like, okay, watch me. And I want to help other people embrace that. It can be so scary, right? It's the unknown. I think that life is all about taking risks. And when you stay in the comfort zone, you're going to keep getting the same thing every day. And life's too short for that. I want adventure. I want different experiences. I want to learn from every single person that touches my life, that I interact with. And that's been my career. I've been very, very lucky and blessed to work with so many different companies because I do run an agency. And so I haven't been in just one job. I've worked with hundreds of companies, hundreds of CEOs, hundreds of leadership teams, and I learned something from each of them. And so I want people to just know that if that's something that interests them, they can do it. They can build that career. And also in their personal life, kind of to your point, we're told that we're supposed to graduate from college, get married, have the kids, get the white picket fence, all of these things that look like the perfect life, and then put it on social media. And if we don't, something must be wrong with us. There's nothing more that I love than seeing an artist who is just like bucked all of that and is living, I don't know, in Bali and creating pottery for a living and perfectly happy. We need to give people permission to build the life they want. And that's a very long answer to your simple question of why I think I'm here.
Okay. Number one, it's not a simple question.
That's true. It's not a simple question.
It's not at all. And number two, it's beautiful because I want to just observe a couple things. And by observing it, also ask listeners to think about this. So what you stated so beautifully was that I am here to help other people create the life that they desire, right? Or help support them in that. So what's beautiful about your why am I here? Your why am I here is about service. It's about connection. It's about love. It's about other people. And so what people don't understand is that happiness does not just come from serving self. It
Right.
comes from serving others. It comes from being a part of a connected organism, so to speak. If we're humans being, we're like one humanity, right? We're all connected. And I think there's a lot of wisdom in that statement that's that you can just quickly gloss over. And I would just ask you as a listener, what is your purpose? Why are you here? How are you serving other people? Get really curious about that, because I think we're often so focused on self that we miss the fact that you have a great opportunity.
That's true. That's true. In fact, I posted on LinkedIn, I think last week. I spent a lot of time on LinkedIn, as you can tell. But I said, when's the last time you just reached out and asked somebody, how can I support your work? And, that can go such a long way. And I think part of that is just being in marketing and PR for so long. A lot of what we do, or my team does, is reach out to reporters. And I've always said, follow their work, engage with their work. Don't just reach out when you need something. You need to build a relationship. And that's something I think people lose the art of sometimes, is building a relationship. I've been guilty of it in my career, not having talked to someone forever and then reaching out and saying, hey, can you help me? So I try to be really cognizant of changing that and being of service to other people when I don't need something. So then, when it comes full circle and I might need something, it's not selfish to reach out and say, hey, I could use your support. Do you know anyone who does this sort of thing?
Yeah, 150%. And I will also say, I don't want to under value for people. It's hard to serve people when you haven't put the mask on yourself, right? Like, you have to take care of yourself enough to then be in a place where you can serve others, and that's super important. As we think about AI, Christine, and we think about this very powerful tool that can help us, replace humans in very key areas, which is a blessing, right? If you think about it, like, man, if we don't all have to work all the freaking time, isn't that a great thing? Yet we're scared of it, right? We're scared of it because I think our fear is our fear of ourselves. Our fear is our fear of greed. Our fear is our fear of selfishness of others, to use these tools to take and to leave us, right? If you think about it, it's kind of like this really sad, like, we're like all in a village and we're scared that, like, some of us are going to take all the resources,
Right.
all the things. How do you think that plays out? Like, as a leader, I know you're in your business, but as you think about leadership in corporations, as you think about leadership in political realms, in church houses, right, or faith houses, like, what do you think we need to be aware of or do maybe differently as we think about what AI could do and the fear that we have?
I think we need to embrace possibility when it comes to AI. And I would say something my therapist always says, is not a meme, my therapist says, to not worry forward, but to plan accordingly. So AI Salesforce just laid off, 4,000 or 5,000 people yesterday or this week. So there will be changes, but that doesn't mean that it all has to be negative. And I think people are so afraid of change. Is it unfortunate that some people are losing their jobs? Yes, but sometimes life pivots you when you're not paying attention, and maybe they'll end up doing something else that does involve AI and expands their horizons because it's helpful in a new role versus, I was debating this last night with someone, and he was saying AI won't replace workers, and I said, well, it just did at Salesforce and Google. And so he was explaining how those were roles that just did one thing. And then so they were focused on one thing. And so maybe the beauty of incorporating and developing AI into our work environments is opportunity, an opportunity to do more than one thing, opportunity to use it to do things faster so we can do more better. And so I think we have to flip the script when we think about it. And it's not going away. So learn about it, be curious, observe, research, and start to think about it from a place of possibility.
Yeah. I think I've said this on this podcast several times. Fear and greed move fast. Love and sharing move slow. And so the possibility of AI is it's really about, how can AI solve the things that don't seem initially to give us as much money, but have tremendous value and long-term impact? So I'll use the example of literacy. I think I've used that example, right? So, like, what if you had an AI application that could really ensure that a young person or even an old person could read, right? So that if they had challenges in that area, you can pick this up. It's going to learn. You can plug in your learning style. It tests your learning style. It figures that out, and then you're actually you're out loud reading, and it's giving you feedback, and you're basically learning to read entirely with something that learns you and makes sure that you're able to. So all of a sudden you're like, oh my gosh, that's incredible, right? For that teacher that's struggling with that student, I'm going to give them this special AI tool, and the AI tool gets that student up to where they need to be, and the teacher can engage with them on the behavioral issues that are struggling around the use of it, blah, blah, blah. Point being, there's so much possibility that we're not thinking about that could be so great, because now all of a sudden you have an army of youth who can all read, and you have an army of youth who all know. It sounds so wrong, an army of youth who can all understand financial literacy and
Right.
who aren't ill informed. So now you know that they're choosing to just use their money poorly. They're not unaware of the implications. And for us as a society, oh my gosh, wouldn't it be great if you knew that every person that you worked with or talked to on the street knew that it wasn't a 2-for-1 special? It really isn't. Okay. But, they're fooled. Some people are fooled. And so it'd be interesting what would a world look like where
Right.
everyone's educated,
Education, like I said earlier, healthcare, I think, is
Healthcare.
exciting.
Yeah.
Accelerating research and science to cure or, help patients in new ways. Those are things that we will all benefit from. And again, it's a possibility.
Knowing which politicians are voting, and it's unethical because AI is like, bloop, bloop, hey, you own these assets over here.
That's actually a good point. Yeah, lots of research. It's going to make us all research scientists now, so that's good.
Really
but honestly, it's freeing, not just in the business world, but again, going back to healthcare. It's freeing doctors and nurses from manual work so they can do more of what they do well and why they got into the industry in the first place. I actually had a conversation with a brilliant couple of entrepreneurs last week, and they're using AI in agriculture and finance. And they're accelerating decisions by banks to fund small rural farmers. Whereas, don't quote me, I'm kind of paraphrasing here, but in the past, banks had like 3 criteria that they would base loans on. And now AI is accelerating that to give them 12 criteria, including weather and conditions and, more than just those 3 bullets in order to get equity in agricultural farming. I thought that was so cool. And, that's the thing. It's leveling a lot of playing fields, which people have, they keep saying now everyone can spell, for example, so what's the story that you're going to tell that would make me read your story over someone else's, or, so
or the presentation yeah. It's another angle. And it's opening up so many other questions, though. The biggest questions will be those that we face right now as these average jobs, right? I can't help it. I think maybe it's the father part. You start thinking about all the humans as yours, like everyone's family that's out there, right? They're all us, and some of them are really bright and they lead companies and they innovate. And some of them are happy to do a simple task. Some of them really just do simple tasks, and it's okay. That's where they're at. And so making sure that we're all taking care of each other through this is going to be really interesting.
I agree. And I've seen a lot of that kind of support with people, saying, hey, if you just got laid off, reach out to me. I'm happy to help. What can I do? And also sharing that there are, in fact, jobs being created at the same time. So sharing that information, not just the negative information, but sharing that positive, hopeful, opportunistic information to help people pivot. And isn't that leadership anyway? And that's resilience, going back to that theme, which is just my passion, that's resilience, being able to pivot. If you can't pivot in life, you're going to suffer more than we all have to anyway.
Right. Whether we have to anyway. Yes, it is suffering that refines us and makes us more advanced.
That's right.
You got to learn to love the suffering, and that's the hard part. When you do, though, it's easier, right?
Well, if you look at what can I learn from this, right? And what was my role in this? What do I need to change? Those sorts of things. It becomes opportunity. It's all in how you approach a problem and a challenge. You can now listen. I have wallowed plenty of times. I just had the craziest last year and a half, which kind of culminated in losing my mom in February. But a lot of other things happened in that same year. And I definitely wallowed. There was some wallowing, but you give yourself some time, you grieve, you get back up, and you keep going. And it's a choice that we all have to make. So And then you can chat with ChatGPT if you need some I don't know, motivation. If no one
Some
else is around
encouragement.
in the morning,
Some encouragement. Give me the best advice in the world for this issue. And then you hear it, and then you see that your friends were telling you that, and you're like, oh my gosh, that's the best
right?
friend. They were
I
telling me
understand.
what ChatGPT could come up with.
Well, it does learn off of us. So
Right, right. You can check out the friend that didn't say what ChatGPT. You're like, you're not supportive. So let's talk
or
being
you know what I
about
love to do is analyze conversations in ChatGPT. It's super interesting.
really? What do you mean? What do you do?
If you like, so for example, actually someone sent me a handwritten letter the other day. So I typed it into ChatGPT and said, what do you think like the underlying messages really are here? And it's very interesting. And you can do that with business conversations or, romantic, maybe you're online dating and you're wondering what this chat means. You know what I mean? You can kind of, instead of reading into it, you can get a literal reading into it. So
I
that's,
literally heard about a guy who was telling me that another guy was using ChatGPT to respond on a dating app because he just wasn't sure what to say.
I'm sure that's probably going to become very common. In fact,
There are guys out there like, I want to date. I just don't know how to close the deal.
I don't know how that translates into real life when you're not at all like
I
your
know.
online persona, but that's a problem for another day. That'll make a good case study at some point.
Yeah, maybe the point is to land the face to face and go from there, right?
Well, it goes back to using AI from a humanity perspective. You can't just ask it what to say. It's not going to be you, but you can feed it information like, this is what I want to convey. I'm stumbling over my words. Can you give me some advice? Don't just same with the marketing and PR stuff. I again just wrote it again this morning. Don't just put I want to do marketing into ChatGPT and expect it to spit out a wonderful, stellar, top-notch marketing plan that you're going to also then execute without human help. So same thing as the online dating. You have to know what your brand wants to convey, or otherwise we're all going to end up sounding the same, and that would make life very boring.
Yeah, you have to know yourself. So let's talk about the last two questions I like to ask. One is around vulnerability. So we did talk a little bit about how, it's not all roses. There are challenges. We do suffer. As you think about your business, what's an area that you struggle in that you'd want people to know that like, hey, this is normal. This is how it is.
Okay, yes, I wanted to ask this question of my network anyway, which is quality business development. I get at least two, probably 3 to 5 pitches a day from someone saying, we can automate your lead gen for you, but none of it for me lands the authenticity that's important for us at the Nova Method, the authenticity that's important for me. That could just be a personality thing for me. Automation is great, but it still has to be authentic to your brand. And so I struggle with the slower moving business development, relationship-based business networking that's always been the crux of my career, with automating to go better, faster, wider, deeper, stronger, and beat out competition. That's what I need an answer to. Have people really used these AI generated lead gen, and do they ever work? Because appointment setting just doesn't land with me. I haven't embraced it. I would love to if it actually works, but I've never heard a good story. So that's my answer.
Well, I have an answer that we will talk about off camera. Yeah. But I would say that it's exactly what you said though. The challenge is we have these inhuman, automated things, but we know the humanity is what actually sells and connects and delivers. So it's like, how do you use these two, right? It's kind of like I was saying earlier. It's like we're going to need audits, right? Where it's like, a company thinks, because they're going to go for the money, they're going to be like, oh, we can reduce our sales force by X if we automate these 17 things. But now maybe your leads are going down because the people actually, they get it and it doesn't resonate and they don't click or they don't connect because you forgot the fact that when Stan would show up every day with your company's logo in the door, it was their reminder of an affinity to open that email,
I could talk about this all day long too. Also the strategy behind the psychology in these emails. I posted one a few weeks ago and I had thousands of comments on it. People were very passionate about this. I said, does this sales tactic really work? Like, it was basically like an insult. Like, you clearly don't want to be successful, is how the email ended. And I was like, I'm not going to be bullied into buying your service. Does this really work for people? Maybe it does from a psychology standpoint. And it was a very heated debate. Most people agreed, no, that's bad. But it goes back to AI. Don't just take whatever AI tells you. First of all, it makes a lot of mistakes, as we all know. And second of all, again, it's not authentic to you if you're not prompting it, massaging the message, putting your personality in there and your goals, rather than just having it tell you, right? I mean, we could all go write a book now with ChatGPT or Perplexity or whatever, or Grammarly. That'd be boring. It's not.
Yeah. Do I want to read it? Do I want to read it? Right.
I think authenticity is now back at the top of the list because of AI.
Mm-hmm. And which then gets into emotion. It gets into meaning, purpose, fire, right? All these things that have nothing to do with rote repetition.
Exactly.
So let's end this with a question around something that you wish you would have learned younger, that you learned maybe along the way, that you'd give to someone and say, hey, here's a fast pass.
This is going to sound so cliche, and the reason I'm sharing it is because I've been saying it for years, but I myself did not really do it until this last year, and I will never not do it again. And that is to trust your intuition. If your intuition is telling you something is off, something is off, whether it's with a business partnership, hiring somebody, taking on a client that isn't quite right, going on a date somewhere, whatever it is, your body will tell you. That book, The Body Keeps the Score, is so accurate and so true. And so always trust yourself. Just don't let people take that from you. It's so easy to give away that agency, and you'll always come back to how you originally felt. And you could save a lot of years of misery if you just trust yourself.
Yeah, there's like a fear of lack or a fear of failure, or there's a fear that sits underneath trusting that perception, right? That you just got to learn, like, nope.
Well, we all have what's it, imposter syndrome. Like, what do I know? I don't know. So I should listen to everyone else first. I think you kind of addressed that earlier in the podcast, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I will say it's really fun. I have I teach, I teach 9-figure leadership excellence and strategies, and I have a assessment that actually helps people. One of the areas is perception. And so it's actually a mirrored assessment. It shadows back to you where you actually feel you are in that area. And the funny thing is that most executives, we're Teflon-y. We're like, oh, I'm fine in every area. I'm strong, because you can't be the imposter, right? You got to lead. Everyone's looking to you.
Right.
But the reality is when you get to being quiet and take a snapshot of yourself, a lot of times people aren't following their perception, or they aren't strong in their self-worth or decision-making, whatever it is. And so helping people see that, and actually measuring it is really helpful. But I agree with you 150%. If I could have trusted my gut earlier, right, I could have avoided things, and now I flow through it. I'm just like, nope, I just got, that's some bad energy. I can just tell it,
Yeah.
And it can come back, when it's, the thing is that person or that idea is supposed to stick with you, it comes back.
Yes, it does. It comes back. And I think as leaders, we can also help develop this in people by trusting them to do the job that we hired them to do, guiding them and giving them the grace of learning, but not micromanaging them. I think when we micromanage people, we take away that agency, and then they don't trust themselves, because you're basically telling them they're not trustworthy when you're micromanaging them. Yeah. There's a fine balance.
Very
but we can
so.
use AI to find it. We can use AI to tell us what red flag should I be looking for.
Where am I at? Well, the beauty is that's where the work that you and I do, right? You in branding and trust, and myself in leadership and strategy. You can have people show you what AI today can't yet see. So to wrap up, again, it's the novamethod.com, right? If people want to reach you.
Yep, they can find my LinkedIn and email and everything there. Yeah.
All right, awesome. And then as well, you can check out drhelmutlove.com to find out about my leadership and strategy services. Thank you so much for joining me today, Christine. It was fantastic.
Thank you. It was fun. I
All
appreciate the
right,
invitation.
absolutely. And everyone, have a great rest of your day. I hope you enjoyed this chat, and we'll talk to you soon.
Bye.